Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Furbabies Podcast. And whether you're a cat or a dog, we're excited to have you. More importantly, we're excited for the lady here whose podcast this is. I'm just producing this, helping her out. But we all know and love the person with the biggest heart with pets, the one, the only, the woman, the myth, the cat lady legend, Miss Stephanie Goodman. What is going on, Stephanie?
You know, I've heard many monikers assigned to cat ladies, but legend is a new one. Thank you.
Maybe a legend in your own feline mind, but anyway.
I'm a legend in the mind of my cats, that's for sure.
We'll leave that be.
We'll leave that one alone.
So one of the things that we've been busy, obviously, with a lot of things going on. You've got some great stuff going on for this episode, right, Steph?
I do.
One of the things that we label this is the do's and don'ts of travel. And so you've pulled some information to share with people when they're traveling with cats and dogs and about what to worry about, especially when they're jumping on a plane, right?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. And I shared some of those things with you too, just in case we have a twilight moment in the tech zone.
Right. So one of the things you could do, Steph, is make sure that you've shared this as this popped up on your Facebook page so people can see this on your channel.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm going to refresh my page, so bear with me just a second.
No, I think it's live with us.
Yay.
All right. So let's talk about this. Now, let's backtrack a little bit for those that are joining for the first time. So you are a very big advocate of animal rescue, right?
Yes, I am. I always have been.
And let's talk about what animal rescue is, though.
There's many facets of it.
So let's talk about what you're passionate about, what your aspect of it is, Steph.
My aspect or what I do to help with animal rescue is, well, okay, different question. It's multifaceted. I foster when I can. I donate money when I can to different animals that have, how do I put it?
Issues?
If they've been injured, or if I donate a lot to different shelters and different people who rescues that pull for shelters or from shelters. I donate a lot to different animals to get them sponsored and get them pulled out of shelters as much as I can. I do rescue transport with a couple of groups that run transports across the country. I do foster when I can, and I love doing that. That's so much fun. And by foster, that just means I take an animal into my home, and I've got a spare guest room that I use to let them have a whole room to themselves, and they've got a safe place to sleep every night, and they've got good food in their bellies every day. And they get lots of loves and lots of pets, and they're sequestered from my other animals so that, there's not that kind of stress back and forth, because sometimes it's stressful, and sometimes you might have one that, may need to be separated because they might have a health issue or something like that. But
let's come back to that, Steph.
Yeah.
So, obviously different ways that people can volunteer, whether they've got pets and helping with rescues and stuff like that. But you're big with traveling. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why they call you the angel of the cat rescue world right now.
My hashtag title is a flying angel. And
why is that?
For one of the transports that I work with a lot more than others, the Cat's Meow transport service, I fly. And because of my work and the nature of my work and my travel, I fly a lot as it is. And so I get a lot of mileage points with our airline with Southwest Air. And so I will take those points and I'll use them to fly rescue transports. So I've flown, and I think we talked about this a little bit before in a prior episode, but I've flown halfway across the country. I've flown all the way across the country. Most of the time, it's for an animal that they might have an issue where putting them in a driving transport or a car might not be the best thing for them to do, because sometimes it takes several days, or it might take a couple of weekends where the volunteers get together and they drive on the weekends, but then the animal has a foster for the week. And, because people work, they have different work schedules. But if there's a cat that's got like a special need, or they probably just wouldn't do well in a car for a week or for the weekend, that kind of thing. Or if it's just a really long distance, or if it is going through an area where we don't have a whole lot of volunteer coverage, then one of our coordinators will message me and ask me, hey, what are you doing? Insert random date week. And I'm like, ooh, who am I flying?
So let's talk about that a little bit, because you have one of those upcoming here, right?
I do. I'm really excited about it.
So where are you? What's the name of the cat?
The cat's name is Midnight, and she's a little black panther beauty. She's a sweetheart. And I found out her story, if you're interested in hearing
Hang
it.
on, let's come back to the story in a second, though. Listen to my questions on this to help you out, because we could go all over the place here, and there's some things I know we want to get to here with everybody. So where is she at right now?
Right now, she's with a foster. Well, she's with her mama. Her mama was a foster initially and then turned into a mama, and her mama's had her for 3 years. So she's in Georgia right now, which is actually my original home state before Texas.
So when you talk about mom, are we talking a cat mom or a person mom?
A human mom.
Okay, let's be clear about that. Okay. So in Georgia, and then where is she going to?
She is in Jonesboro, Georgia, and she's going to be transported by car on Tuesday to the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport by a friend of mine. And I'm going to fly into Atlanta and pick her up and fly her to Phoenix, where her new family is. So.
All right. And so let's talk a little bit about transporting that stuff. There is a cat goes by there.
I know. Sorry. It's like full contact animal podcasting. I'm sorry.
All right. So you're going to pick them up. Now, for those that don't know, what's it like to travel with a cat?
It's actually a lot of fun. I think cats are a little bit easier to fly with rather than dogs. Because
why is that?
Because quite simply, if you put down a puppy pad for a cat, they're very smart. They'll use it. So
what's the puppy pad?
Yeah, a puppy pad is it's just a foam little pad that they can go do their business on, and it's a training pad for dogs when they're babies. But yeah, I've got a flying carrier that I use, one of choice, and it fits right in the seat in front of me, and I can slip a pad inside the bottom of the carrier, and so if they have to go wee or if they have to do something else, they can do it right on the pad and it's good to go. And then I can pull it out and put a new one in, and we're off to the races. With a dog, they can do that too, but sometimes you have to take them out to some airports.
Pet relief area?
Yeah, and some airports are really cool. They have a pet relief area, so those are nice. We like those.
Okay.
But you can also take your cat in there, and if there's not another dog that's present at that time, you can kind of let your cat out and give them some space. But as far as traveling goes, another really, really cool thing in a lot of airports now, you'll find the all gender bathrooms or the family bathrooms. And those it's like a room with, it has a toilet in it and a sink and a wash area, but it's one room and it locks, the door locks. So it's a solid, wall to floor kind of environment. So there's, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's nowhere that your cat or your dog can go and get lost underneath something or try to hide and you can't get them out. So those restrooms are really good for travel, because you can go in there and, you can put your harness on if you travel with a harness, or you can give them a meal or let them go to the bathroom or just let them out of their crate, and you just lock the door and you're good to go.
So let's talk about it. So have you put a harness on a cat before and walked them?
I have. I've put harnesses on many cats.
Are they walkable?
No, I put the harness on them so that when I go through TSA, I've got something extra to hold on to.
You mean through security?
Yeah.
Not TSA pre-approval, but we're talking going through the X-ray and stuff like
through
that.
Actual security, yeah.
So what do you carry the cat to? Is the lady in Atlanta just going to toss a cat to you in your arms? It's a hot potato, hot cat?
I have had a cat tossed once before, but no, generally, I'm sorry, that was funny. Generally, the gal that's bringing Midnight to the airport on Tuesday, Myra. Hi, Myra, if you're listening, honey. Myra will bring Midnight to the airport in a carrier, and I get to meet Myra outside at curbside by Southwest. And I get to hop in the car, and the windows are rolled up and the doors are shut and everything. And we get to transfer at midnight from Myra's carrier to my carrier, because sometimes they might be different. Sometimes the carriers you use for driving are hard cases, or they're a little bit bigger. The carriers that you fly in are very size specific, and they're dictated by the airlines. And some airlines have different guidelines, but they're very size specific. And so I have a particular type of carrier that I use now that was recommended to me by a friend. And so we'll transfer midnight into my carrier, and then we'll have lots of hugs, and I'll head on back into the airport and go through security. So when I get to security, you go through, you take your shoes off, you do everything like you normally would going through security. But when you fly with an animal, you put your bag, if you're carrying an extra bag with you, which I usually do because I have supplies in it for the Furbaby. But you put your bag on the counter, take shoes off, all that good stuff. But you put the carrier on the belt, and you have to open up the carrier and take the animal out. Cats and dogs, they don't discriminate. They don't care. So you have to take the animal out. So for me, most of the time you go through the queue lines and you see the people with dogs, and dogs are kind of like, they don't really care. They're more easygoing, or they might, if they're really nervous, they know their person and they just kind of hunker in. They don't move. With cats, it's kind of a 50-50. Sometimes you might get a cat that's super chill, which has been my experience about 80% of the time. They're super chill. They like you. They're comfortable. They know that, I think that they know that something good's going to happen. So they don't fight, and they don't try to run away. Every now and then, though, I get a cat that's really skittish. And when they're suddenly thrust around that kind of environment, and they're around so many people, and, there's a lot of energy in security, and you've got a lot of people in different moods and things like that in security. So it's a different mixed bag. Some of those cats might get a little bit nervous, and they might get a little bit freaked out. And so they get either clingy, or they might try to bolt. And I found that having a harness on them gives me something else to hold on to besides just them, because cats are quick and they're strong and they have claws, which they know very well how to use. So, if you've got a cat that freaks out and digs into you, you're like, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. But it gives you something else to hold on to. So, yeah. So, in relation to, for example, the transport on Tuesday, when I get into Atlanta, and I go to meet Myra and pick up midnight, I know there's a bathroom in Atlanta in that airport that I can go into and shut the door, and it's safe, and I don't have to worry about midnight getting away or escaping or getting scared or anything like that. So she and I can have a little bit of private time and get to know each other for a few minutes, and then I can put the harness on her. And that way I've got an extra layer of security for me and for her when we go through TSA security and get to the other side. And generally, once I get them on the plane, and they're in the carrier under the seat, the harnesses that I use are really easy on, easy off. They've got these little they're like, there's a bungee style leash, and then there's the harness that goes under their chest, around their legs, and then you've got a little clip on the back of their shoulder blades. So where it connects under their girth, under their tummy, I can just unclip that and take it off. And at that point, they can move around freely, and it's not constricting at all, and they're generally much more relaxed.
So have you ever had a runaway cat?
No, I have not had a runaway cat. And that's why
What would you do if that happened, though?
Come again?
What would you do if that happened?
I think that would go to like a DEFCON 5. That's actually the reason why it's a huge part of the reason why human transports have become a thing, instead of just putting animals in a crate and putting them in the cargo hold, because sometimes animals have escaped, both cats and dogs, and they get out outside, or they get out in the airport, and how they hide. You don't find them. And so some owners have lost their babies that way. So if that happened on one of mine, God forbid, I would be diving after that cat,
So that's what I'm saying.
Everybody else would too. But with that harness on, and generally the way that they behave, I don't think going in right there it would be a problem.
So, but the thing is, you mentioned something that there's rooms or other rest areas that people aren't taking their cats out of a box to put them outside to run free.
No.
And most cats aren't harness friendly, are they?
It's been interesting. Some cats are very, it's all about their personality, and some cats are like, what is this thing and what are you trying to put on me? And no. A lot of them don't really mind it though. And I think they might be a little bit shell-shocked at that point of like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And so if you can calm them down and relate to them and kind of give them some cuddles and some scritches and some loves and tell them it's going to be okay and, just kind of chill them out a little bit, generally they're all right. And fortunately, for this leg of rescue, they've been socialized by that point by their fosters or by the people that are adopting them out. So they're not really terrified of humans. They're not feral, if that makes sense. So it's actually not hard. I don't think it hasn't been hard. I've had one cat. There was a cat that I flew about, I think 4 months ago, and she was a sweetheart. Her name was Valentina. She was a pretty tabby. Almost a calico, but a pretty tabby. And Valentina, I went to go put the harness on her, and she looked at me and she was like, I don't want this thing on me. She had it on her anyway, because, I had to sit there and tell, like, okay, it's going to be fine, but we've really got to put this on you right now. So, just calm down. So I got it on her, but she wasn't very happy about it. But she didn't bite. She didn't scratch or anything like that. So, and I've even had one, one of the most surprising transports. There was a really, really sweet Siamese cat, and this cat was, he was very much afraid. He was really, really scared. And his name was Philo. Philo and Luna, actually. And Philo was so scared that, I took him in the bathroom, and I was in there with him for a good, 10 minutes or so. And I remember walking in there with him, and I opened the crate, because it's the crates that I use have a great little Ziploc panel on the top. So you can just open that up and you can reach down inside it. And so if they're going to come out, they're going to have to try to jump out. And generally they don't. They're kind of like, okay. And so Philo, bless his heart, he was really, really skittish, and he was just overwhelmed, I think, by his environment. And I thought for sure, because of how it was kind of challenging to transfer him from the crate that he drove to the airport into the flying crate. And so because of that experience, I thought, this might be challenging, and he might well bite me, but he didn't. He never did. I mean, it was almost like he knew and he understood, okay, this person is not going to hurt me. They're here to help me. And, we're going to go through this together. And he let me put the harness on. He looked and he was like, I really don't like this, but he let me put the harness on him. And then when we went through security together, I put the crate on the X-ray belt. I put my other things on the X-ray belt, and I took him out, and he just snuggled right in by my neck. And so he was super easy, surprisingly. And the funny thing about flying transports too, and I laugh about this every time, when you first take him out of the crate on the front side, and you get them in position. And for me, I always have them on my left side, and I have my left hand kind of like, around their back feet and by their bum. And my right hand is by their shoulders and by their neck. And so there's a reason for that, because part of the harness hooks right here. So I can link a couple of fingers in on the harness and hold them. Now, when I get through the
X-ray,
the metal detector, because they don't make you go through the pod, you go through just the metal detector version, which is so much nicer. Whenever you go through those, no matter who you are, they're going to tell you, let me scan your hands. And so I've learned, because the first time it caught me off guard, I wasn't prepared for that. And I was like, I'm holding a live animal. How do you want me to show you my hands? So, but now it's a lot easier to do, and they're a lot more chill. And so usually I've got my arms are like this and they're locked, and I can do my hands out like that. And then they'll just kind of scan, with their little wand where my hands are. And so, in the cat in question, whoever I'm flying at that point, just really, just kind of nuzzles in and buries themselves in my hair. And then we get through, the back end of that line, and the crate's coming out, through the box and through the checkpoint, and they are so happy to go back in their crate. It is not even funny. It's hard to get them out, but they go right back in. They're like, put them back in.
All right, so that's cool. That makes sense. You painted a pretty good picture there.
Thank you.
Of stuff. Now, what are some things that you would recommend people that are traveling with their cat for the first time do? What are some do's and don'ts? Let's talk with some things that they should do before they get on a plane, before they buy a ticket, things like that.
Before they get on a plane with their animal, when they buy their ticket, airlines, some airlines work a little bit differently. With Southwest, you buy your ticket and then you call in, and there's a phone number that you call in and you tell them, I tell them, I've got a flight coming up on such and such date. Here's my confirmation number, and I need to make a pet reservation. And they're not free. It's a $95 fee for the leg that you're flying. And if you were going round trip, if you were going out to California, you'd pay it to get there and then you'd pay it to come back.
That means if you're traveling with a cat both ways, though.
Yeah.
But not if you're doing it just one way, though, right?
No, if you're doing it just like the one I do on Tuesday, it's just a $95 fee. It's the cabin fee for her to fly. And so, but you call in and you make that reservation. And what I would recommend is if you're going to be flying, like I have the luxury of most of the time when I do flying transports, generally I know about it at least 2 to 3 weeks on the short end. I've flown once where I think we had about a week lead time and it was a really special case. But most of the time I know ahead of time about, 3 weeks to a month even, maybe even 2 months. And so I'll go ahead and book the flight and then I'll call in and I'll make the reservation, because each flight for Southwest, they've got they will allow 6 animals on the plane, or 6 reservations is how they say it on the plane for that particular leg. And so you want to make sure that you get in on that flight so that you don't have to reschedule it or do something else. So I do that. And so that would be a recommendation that I have, is if you know you're going to be flying with your cat or your dog, as early as you can book your ticket, go ahead and call in and, book the reservation for your pet. Don't forget about it. Don't leave it to the week before, because it could happen. It's maybe not I've never seen it happen yet, knock on wood, but it could happen that the flight's full and you can't, you'd have to reschedule your flight. That can be very expensive. Another thing I would recommend is if you are flying for the first time with your baby or with, for a transport or whatnot, go ahead and get your kid, find out as much about the cat as you can. And for me, it's now at this point, I've done enough of them that I kind of just want to know what their personality is like on a normal day, how old they are, and how big they are. And that tells me what size crate I need to make sure that I have. And it also tells me what size harness I need to get. Because I've gone to an airport before and I had a harness that was almost too tight. And so now I actually carry 2.
How do you measure that, Steph, though?
There is a really cool, I usually do it by weight. Like if I know I've got a cat that's coming in at like 14 pounds, he's a bit of a heifer. So I usually get a large or an extra large. If it's a really small cat and they're under 10 pounds, I probably can do it with a small or maybe a medium. But there's a really cool picture, if I can pull it up here.
Hang on, I'll pull it up. Don't worry about it. I'll pull it up.
Great. Because it shows the measurements and how to measure them and where you should measure them to get an idea. And it also gives you kind of a weight frame to go with. So. I can't see. Did you want to share?
I'm working on it, Steph.
Okay. No, you're good.
Photos that you've freaking sent me. There we go. All right, let's try to share my video here. Share my screen.
Like, I'll give you a perfect example. For everybody who's seen my cats on my Facebook page, like Raimi, my tuxedo, Raimi is an 18-pound cat. And I've had to put an extra large harness on him because he's just a raging fatty. My oldest, Fury, she is about 8 to 9 pounds. And she wears, I've got a small, but she can wear it, but I'll. So
let's not worry about your cats. Let's talk about measuring. That's the big thing. So basically taking it from their chest to the end at the rear, the pet's rear. That's one size, and then measuring it from the top of the pet's back to the floor is basically those are the 2 measurements: length and then height. And so For a medium carrier, maximum weight is 16 pounds. Length would be for pets up to 16 inches long and height to 10 inches high.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, have you carried with a large carrier before, or just mostly mediums?
I've carried mostly mediums.
And do you have to keep those on the chair next to you, or do they go under the seat?
They are required to go under the seat in front of you.
Okay. All right. Now, what happens if it's an oversold flight? Do they have the right to boot you off the plane? Do you know?
Not if you are a confirmed reservation, and not if you check in on time. They can't boot you off the plane. They might ask you if you'll volunteer to give up your seat. Mm-hmm. But when I do a flying transport, I don't do that, because I've got too many people on the back end that are waiting. So I mean, if it were just me flying by myself, I probably wouldn't mind it. But if it's something like that, I don't have the leeway to do it.
So if somebody's traveling with their pet, so they should measure their pet, make sure they have the right size carrier, right? Mm-hmm. Call the airlines and make a reservation. Do you know if all the airlines allow pet reservations?
That is a really good question, and we should check on that. I know that Southwest does. I know American Airlines does. I know United does, but we won't go there. I don't know for sure if Delta does, but I know they allow animals on the plane. I've had friends that have flown with their animals before, so I think all of them do.
So,
and I've got a friend actually that flies for Delta. So yeah, I don't know of one. As far as the large carriers go, I don't know of one that doesn't allow them.
Well, it all depends on the size of the animal.
Yeah.
And if they're stress relief, like somebody brings on a flying squirrel, they're not allowing flying squirrel. There was an article the other day about how some of the airlines are cracking down on, what do you call it? Stress animals.
Emotional support animals.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a hot topic right now.
Okay. So you want to measure them, make sure there's a harness on them. So if they get buck wild, you can have something to hold on to them, right?
Yeah. And the other wonderful thing about those harnesses is they come with a leash.
Yeah.
So, worst case scenario, like what you were asking before, like, oh my God, what would happen?
Psycho cat.
Yeah. If you had a psycho cat that completely flipped out and turned into the Exorcist and jumped out of your arms or fell out of your arms, and hit the ground, which would be like DEFCON 5. Well, number one, the harness is going to catch, and the leash is going to catch.
So you have the leash attached to the harness when you're going through security? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, buddy, yes, I do. And that's actually really and truly, that's probably the biggest reason why I harness them, because I know even if the worst case scenario happened and they got out of my hands, God forbid, that leash is going to catch them. And
so what else should people doing besides that? Should they feed the cat heavily before they leave? Water the cat? Should they limit the amount of food the cat intakes in so the cat's not making a big cat mess on a plane?
I think it depends on how long your flight is. If it's, for me, most of the flights that I do with animals are anywhere from 2 hours to like 4 to 5 hours. So I would not feed them heavily before you go, because stress can make them have to go to the bathroom quicker, and then they're going to end up having to do it in their crate, and really we try to avoid that. So if you could feed them the night before, and if your flight's an early morning flight, maybe not feed after midnight, just like you would do if they were going in for a procedure at the vet. Don't feed after midnight. Give them, if they've got medications they need to take, give them a bit of water with their meds. And maybe something small to put on their stomach to keep them from getting nauseous, but don't give them
wait a second. Hang on a second. Let's go back to that. What do you mean put something on their stomach? You mean a little small something to nibble on, or something?
Like maybe like if you normally feed your cat, or your dog gets a cupful of kibble or something in the morning, and your cat gets like a 5.5 ounce of can of wet food or some kibble, maybe give them a third of that. Just something, a little bit of something, but not anything too heavy. And then, when you get to where you're going, when you get in there and you get settled, then you feed them like normal. A lot of the ones that I've flown, if we have layovers that I can't really do anything about, like if I can't book a nonstop flight, which I try to do, if I can't do a nonstop and I'm stuck somewhere in an airport for 2 hours or 3 hours in between the flights, then usually the foster or the fellow transport before me that's sending them along will have a bit of dry food, or maybe like a small can of food. and I'll go in one of those rooms that we were talking about, and I'll open that up and I'll give them part of that. And that way they get a little bit of something to nibble on, but it's not like, a huge buffet, huge meal. And for the record, I've only had a cat have to go to the bathroom twice. One of them was really funny, and we talked about that already. And the other one, it was just a very simple thing. So
what do you mean it was simple? They just crap themselves, or they crap or pee?
No. She had to go wee, and she urinated on the puppy pad in the crate, and she was fine. And I went to the bathroom and I pulled the pad out and replaced it, and we were back on our way. So those are easy. So to that end, as far as when the recommendation goes, definitely go in and get some puppy pads. They are the best thing in the world to travel with. You can, a lot of times, the carriers have like little side zip compartments on the exterior that you can put a pad inside of it. So usually I'll put one or two in that, and I'll carry, for the cats that I fly, I'll carry a small bag of catnip, and I'll kind of sprinkle that inside to kind of calm them down a bit. I've got
Wait a second now. Hang on. So you're getting the cats all high in catnip then?
Of course. Hey, humans get to have a beverage on the, the in-flight service, so I figured the cats deserve some catnip.
Are you saying Southwest needs to start putting cat coupons and the cat into the drink tokens?
What?
Are you saying Southwest should start giving a cat coupon with the drink instead of drink tickets?
That would be really cute, especially for the fee. That would be really cute. Yeah.
The cats who travel, are they normally louder, or they get quiet in travel?
8 out of 10 of them are extremely quiet. Mm-hmm. They don't say a word.
Or meow, because cats don't talk.
Well, they talk and they meow, but they don't meow. You don't hear them at all. They might purr, but that's it. And unless you're leaning down to check in on them like I do, you're not even going to really hear them purring. You can't hear anything when the engines start up. So, okay. But yeah.
So you're transferring a cat. You pick a cat up, you make sure and swap out containers, whether it's a big plastic one in the back of a truck or backseat of a car, put it into your medium-sized cat carrier, which will put a link in there.
Yep,
and you make sure you put a harness around the cat before you go into the airport with a leash attached to it.
I can't stress that enough.
Okay, so in case they go buck wild, you have something to hold them on or step on.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that with the harness, the more we talk about it, I cannot stress that enough. I really can't. Okay. And especially if it's your own animal, you've got some lead time. So you can really get your animal used to having a harness on before you ever go anywhere. Sure. And you don't even have to connect the leash to it. You can just put the harness on them. Like people put on collars or sweaters or whatever fun stuff for the holidays. Just put the harness on them.
Wait a second. Are you saying people are putting harnesses on like it's pony time? Like they're freaks on HBO? Bouncing around pony time, they should put a leash on called cat time?
People are strange.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. Let's come back here a little bit. So you've gone through security, you put the cat in, you've got puppy pads, so if they make a mess, you can clean them up.
Yep.
You've got a little bit of the cat crack with you so that they're on high. And then you arrive at the new airport. Okay. Have you ever had anybody not show up, or do you know of a case where the person that was there to pick the cat up didn't show?
I've had cases where the person picking the cat up was delayed, but I have not yet had someone just not show up. Thank God.
You haven't, but you know of a case where somebody didn't show up with your Underground Kitten Network?
I do, actually. It's not the Underground Kitten Network. It's the Cats Me on Transport.
Sorry, my apology.
It's okay.
The Cats Network.
It's important, but it's okay. No, I actually, a friend of mine, so it's really cool. She does these transports from, how do I put it? What's like expats?
Expatriates from overseas?
Yeah. So they were U.S. citizens that moved to another country or whatnot. And they, in some of those places, there's so many street animals, and the condition, like people are stressed out, or the care for them varies. I'm gonna put that nicely. So these people are like, look, we've got friends and family back home in the States. Can we bring these animals over and get them adopted and, bring them to the U.S.? And so they go through the proper channels, and they get the funding, and they get the crates, and sometimes they fund it themselves, which is really phenomenal. But they get these cats and dogs too. They've done both, right?
Yeah, no, they've rescued them. Let's save that for another episode. Hang on.
Yeah, no. So to your question of if somebody has not shown up, I have a friend that this one cat was flown into Canada, like from muffins. I think it was one of the Doha cats, and the cat was ultimately flown into Canada, and there was a person that was supposed to come pick the cat up, and they didn't show.
So what happened? They flew back with a cat?
No, they didn't. The person that was slated that flew in was already on a flight headed back out. And so the people that picked up the cats to unload, to do, the back end processing, if you will, and get them to the people that were supposed to pick them up, take them home, they kind of, they got stuck, if you will. And so they...
Okay, wait a second. Let's make it more clear here. Okay, what I'm talking about, so somebody's transporting a cat, flying into a market to drop the cat off with another transport, right? Is what you're saying?
What?
Somebody's flying in with a cat to drop it off to somebody else like you to pick the cat and take it another route, right?
Yeah. I've never had that happen on my end.
But you're not clarifying this. You're not making it clear. So the person that was going to transport the cat, the next leg didn't show up? Or was late?
Yeah, exactly. And in
the person that had the cat just leave it sit there? That's what I'm trying to get at. What happened?
No. The person that had the cat at that point took the cat home with them.
So they flew back with the cat again?
No. The person that picked up the cat to do the processing, like before the next person, that one person ended up taking that cat home with them.
You're not even making sense. I'm sorry to be argumentative with you here. Okay, stop for a second. Listen. Right. No. Listen to what I'm saying here. So what I'm trying to go at the point here. So you are flying the cat out to meet, let's say, with Mitzi. All right? Mm-hmm. And Mitzi is there to pick the cat up to take it to Steven. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, what if you're flying out there and Mitzi's not there? What happens? Do you fly the other leg to Steven, or you fly back home with the cat? That's what we're trying to get at.
Oh, I got you. Well, if I was in the U.S., I'd probably fly back home.
With a cat?
Yep.
Okay. All right. But you don't have a reservation?
I would go back up to the gate and ask for one.
Okay. So that's what I'm trying to get at. What happens in those situations? If somebody flies in to drop the cat off and the person that's supposed to pick the cat up, like the owner, doesn't arrive?
Actually, Scott, that's a really good question. And fortunately, we have not had that happen. Knock on wood.
Wait a second. You said somebody up in Canada, you were taking a cat up. Somebody was taking a cat to Canada and somebody didn't show up for it.
Yeah, but it was somebody that wasn't part of our group. It was like a different because you had asked, like, had that ever happened? And it has happened, but just in our group.
Okay, but what's the policy then? Just to fly the cat back and try again?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Oh, I would think the question's kind of obvious there, though. You're not just going to leave a cat in an airport.
No, nobody would leave the cat in an airport. None of us would ever.
You just drop the box into like a big FedEx box and punch
it. Yeah, no. Put a sticky on it outside, like free to go.
Say fragile.
Yeah, fragile. No, none of us would do that. Probably what would happen is to back up. The cool thing about our transports is we have somebody that's, in the James Bond movies, like Q, who always knows what's going on, and if you need something, he handles it and fixes it. For our transports, there's always a person that's on the back end, like a monitor for the whole trip.
Quartermaster.
Yeah, so everybody checks in with this person for every single leg and goes,
okay,
I've arrived, I'm here at, leg A. And so the person that's starting leg B is here to meet me, and we've done the handoff and we're good. And so everybody is confirmed days. And I already got the confirmations for this one yesterday. So our group is already up and running on Facebook, and we've got a private message group. And so, everybody maps out, I'm going to meet you here. I'm confirmed that I'm coming. And then if something happens the day of, if there's a delay, they communicate, whoever has the delay communicates that to that monitor, and then also to the person who's, coming to meet them at that next point.
So do you have like a secret code, secret handshake for the handoff, like, whispers and kittens and lullabies or stuff like that?
Kind of, yeah.
Is it something you can't show? You have to kill us if you just share the secret? Hand off?
No, it's a different, it's almost like a Mission Impossible thing. Like that message will self-destruct after 20 seconds.
Are you serious? Are there exploding bags? You're going to kill the cat?
No.
The cat will be ejected with the ejector seat?
What?
Nothing.
I'm sorry. I was laughing. I didn't hear you. I apologize. No, when people decide where to meet, we keep that kind of private so that you don't have weirdos out there, because there are some strange people in the world that will show up in random places. And so for safety's sake, like each individual person will communicate, hey, we're going to meet I'll share this. If I'm in Texas and I'm doing a driving transport, I love to go meet at a Buc-ee's, which is one of our chain gas stations across.
So you don't get catnapped with a cat?
Yeah, so I don't get catnapped. And so I don't.
That's good to know. That's good for people to know.
Yeah, so we try to meet somewhere that's like a restaurant or a gas station or a Starbucks or a coffee shop or somewhere that, is safe. And
you can hand the cat off and run.
They can hand the cat off safely, but it's a safe public place where if something, if you did, God forbid, if you did have some person who was handling a leg of a transport and just went bonkers, I don't know, for a better word, it's in a public place. So, nobody has to worry about ever getting hurt or anything like that.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
So are there any resources that people can go? Are there any resources for people to go to find out about how to travel with a cat or a dog?
Yeah, on the airlines pages, they all have a tab, and usually it's like in their frequently asked questions page. They'll have a tab that'll say traveling with your animal or traveling with your pet and what to do, and they'll outline. They're very specific. The type of carrier size, they will lay out the sizing of those carriers, which is why I'm really happy that we got to share the measurements thing, because on another picture, it was another picture that I sent you, they have, for the Sherpa ones, they've got the actual dimensions and everything with them. So what size crate to order and the weight and everything. And you can make sure that it meets the airline's guidelines. And a cool thing, this is a cool fact, but I didn't know this. The carriers that I like to use come from, it's the Sherpa line, and I can post a link for it, or you can, but there's muffins. What was it called? It's almost like a guarantee. It is a guarantee, actually. And it was really cool because they say that, because pet policies in cabins is not regulated by the FAA. It's regulated by the individual airlines. This company has worked with the airlines to set up the parameters for the sizing for the crates that'll fit under the seat. And so they can actually come in and say, yeah, it's guaranteed to fit. And if the airline gives you a hassle about it or whatnot, reach out to us and we'll work with you. And I think that they even said, they'll refund part of the funds or something like that you've had to pay, or you get some sort of recourse for it, which is really cool. But it's I think it's like guaranteed on board, or I had the link up and I closed it because of we were having
No problem. We got some comments on here. Rosie from England really says, do you have a list of things you always take while transporting? We already covered that.
Well, there's a couple of things that we left out, though, we haven't gotten to.
Okay, what are those?
One of those is medications, because some cats do travel with medications, and ideally the person, they'll give them the medicine in the morning before they get on the plane, or before they get on the plane, before they get to you getting on the plane. So you want to have to list their medications. If you're carrying their medications, or they might have a special blanket or a toy or whatnot, you want to make sure you've got a spot to hold that stuff. One thing I have learned going through security, they have a hard time with cat food. I really don't know why. It's kind of like when you go through Orlando and now they check all the candy. If you've got dry food in a Ziploc bag, they want to check that too. And you're looking at them going, it's just cat food. But times are different. So
you want to make sure it's in small cans of whatever you are taking, not a big can.
And you don't want to take a bunch. I felt really, really bad. I flew a transport one time, and the foster, God bless her, she was a sweetheart. She got to the airport and she had all this food for the cat, and I was like, that is not going to fit.
You're going to have to check that.
Yeah, and then there was just a lot of it. So it's like, oh, let me take a little bit of it, and then, we'll get her set up on the back end.
All right, cool.
So, but you want to make sure you have your medications. And a lot of airlines, they want to make sure that the animal is not sick. So you have to, before you get on the flight with them, you have to make sure that they are up to date on their vaccinations for the vaccinations and like a health check. For our transports, they have it is literally just a health checklist. And the people who have them before I get to them will take them to the vet. The vet will sign off, and it's like a little form that they send along with you.
Like a passport?
Kind of. And it just clears them to say they're healthy, they don't have any communicable diseases, they're safe to fly. And so you want to make sure that you have that with you, like you would carry your own driver's license or your own passport, because some airlines are stricter than others about asking for it. And if they do ask for it, you need to be able to produce it and have it on hand. So you want to have that. And I try to take that stuff in like a waterproof, like a Ziploc bag or a laminate envelope or something like that, or it won't get wet. So you want to have that. You want to have their list of medications, the instructions. You want to have their vet info. You want to have the person, the home family who they're going to. Make sure you have their information. Make sure you have your monitor's information or whoever you're checking in with. And so if it's your own animal, to that end, I would say make sure you have your information for an emergency contact. So if something happens to you, God forbid, they can see this animal and, in the side pocket of the carrier, it's like this animal belongs to, Jane Doe from Smith Street, and next point of contact or emergency contact is Scott Carson from Smith Street, so that if something were to happen to you, your animal's not stuck in limbo at an airport. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure does.
And you want to, if you are traveling with them, travel with, their medications. So if it's your own animal, make sure that you've got enough medication with you that, if something happened, you've got extra. Or if something happened to you, there's extra, and there's instructions on what to do with it, how to use it. Because some cats are diabetic and they have to get shots. There's a lot of different things. It's really not that much different than flying with people, or your kids. Make sure you've got your supplies. So
make sure you've got a prescription for your animals. Make sure it's for the cat, not like was it Terminal with Tom Hanks, where the guy was able to get medication because it was for his goat, for his dad's goat versus himself.
Did he really? Wow.
It's for the goat. It's for the family goat.
It's for the family goat. That's all.
So,
yeah.
All right. So cool. We got some comments there because we're kind of having to wrap up here in a second here. So Brady Durr says he flew the family pet 12 hours across from LA to China, it looked like, or Japan actually.
Japan to LAX. Brady, that is amazing. How did that? Was it a cat? Was it a dog? How did they do?
I don't know. I think he's probably off. He's not.
But yeah, and he mentioned it's important for military families that get stationed overseas. Yes, and to that end, because I've got some friends that flew from the Air Force, your cats and your dogs may have to go through quarantine when they get into the States. I've got some friends that flew. I can hear myself. Okay, I can't hear myself anymore. Okay, we're good. But yeah, they may have to go through quarantine before they get released.
Sure.
So you really want to make sure that you've got all their vet records and everything, and like an extra copy of it up to date, and you've got it to where it's readily accessible. And yeah. You
want to make sure that you're not like Johnny Depp and Amber Beard flying into a country against quarantine and having to keep their Pomeranians on the airplane.
Yeah. I heard about that.
Yeah, good times. All right, Steph, what's the best way if somebody wanted to reach out to you, ask you some more questions? Could they reach out to you to get a hold of you, ask you questions about traveling with a cat?
Yeah, they totally can. I think my phone number lives all over the internet now in mostly good ways. And they can post on the Furbabies Podcast page.
On Facebook?
We're doing some stuff with that page finally. So they can post there. Or they can email us.
Right. And then the website should be up and running before too long. Furbabiespodcast.com shortly.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, great job, Steph, as always. Thanks for those that have watched it. Thanks for sharing. And if you enjoy it, like it, subscribe here to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to it on iTunes and Stitcher and all those other podcast platforms, make sure to like it and share it. And If you've got a meow or a woof, tune into the next episode of the Furbabies Podcast.
And
Bye,
hey,
bye.
if you've got traveling pets, come in and share them on the Furbabies page. I love to see things like that. So, and in fact, on Tuesday, I don't post all of my flights that I do just for work travel, but when I do a transport flight, I generally will post like, hey, we're, logging in this morning from Atlanta or whatever airport I'm in. We're going to do this transport today and follow us along on our journey. And, people will chime in and chat and talk about it. And it's a lot of fun. They're fun days. They're long days, but they're really fun days. So
good stuff there, Steph. We'll have a safe trip on Tuesday with you in midnight find whiskey, because that's where you're traveling to, right?
Yeah. She and that's actually an interesting story, because I found out that the family she's being adopted by, they had a black cat for a long time, and that black cat was the best friend for Whiskey. And so that cat unfortunately passed away about 2 years ago of urinary problems. And so meanwhile, Midnight had been found by her mama in Georgia. And initially her mom found her as a stray, and, she pulled her off the streets. Midnight wasn't, I don't think she was chipped. She wasn't claimed by anybody. So this lady took her in and she kept her, and she kind of became part of the family. And she had her for a while. And so it just turned out that these people met through social media, and the family that had lost, their fur baby, they said, we really, our cat, Whiskey's really sad. We really want to adopt another cat to, help fill that hole. And we would like to adopt a black cat, which I'm uber passionate, really passionate about, because I've always had black cats, and that's one thing I tried to do. So it was a great thing for that. But they got to talking, and when they found out that she had Midnight, and they, talked about personality and the cats back and forth, they decided, wow, this, she looks like she'd be a really good fit for the family. And so then they decided to adopt her. So it's cool because, they get to bring in a cat that, they have a new addition to their family. They have, hopefully the personalities should match up, and Whiskey will have a new friend, and Midnight will have a new friend. And then our lady that does, the fostering and rescues of strays, now she has space to go in and pull up another one. So it's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a domino effect,
Yeah. Good stuff there. All right. Well, hey, that's going to wrap it up for this episode, everybody, of the Note Closure Show. Once again, you can follow Steph on her journey on Tuesday. She travels across the country to rescue another cat. So until we film the next one, every happy meow and woof.
Meow again.
Yes, exactly. We'll see you guys all later. Bye.
Cool. Thank you.